Okay, this is another video, and it's out of the medical press, and it's a study that is revealing new information. As of June 4th, this came out, 2018. HIV study reveals new group of men at risk of infection. Public health messages should be targeted specifically at this neglected group, suggest the researchers who carried out their work. So, a group of men who may be underestimating their HIV risk has been identified in the new study. Men are a distinct group who have sex with other men but are not open about their sexuality. Now, I've been talking about this in previous videos, and I knew someone whom he had identified himself openly as gay, and he had told me, he warned me, and he told me, he said, "Let me tell you something. It's not the men who are open about their sexuality that you got to worry about. It's the ones who are not open about their sexuality that are the problem." So these men are a distinct group. Now, I'm going to go on with this article. It says they tend to mix with and acquire infection from each other and not from openly gay men. Okay? Let me read that again. They tend to mix with each other and acquire the infection from each other and not from openly gay men. Those are men who are they are unlikely to mix in the same social venues as openly gay men and are not likely to disclose that they have is the fear of the stigma and the rejection, the stigmatization, the rejection, the prejudice. That is why they don't come right out. But could you blame people for being afraid? Look at the climate that we're experiencing. So it says prejudice can stop this group, who include bisexual and non gay identified men. Let me call that out again: bisexual and non gay identified men. These are men who they may have had an encounter or more than one or two or many encounters, but they don't call themselves gay. They don't consider themselves to be gay. They could be married, they could have girlfriends, wives, children. Also, men who are bisexual, but they don't let you know that that's what they consider themselves to be. They're less likely to receive prevention messages and access the same health care as others. And as a result, they may be less aware of their HIV risk. Researchers at the University of Edinburgh used a national archive of anonymous data to study patterns of HIV transmission. So they analyzed the genetic code of the virus samples from more than 60,000 HIV positive people in the UK. Because the genetic information of the virus changes rapidly over time, by finding people whose virus was more similar, scientists were able to create networks of linked infection to see how the virus had spread. Earlier, the work from the same group suggested that 6% of men who claimed to be heterosexual at the time of diagnosis had actually become infected through sex with men. Let me read that again. Ladies who are out there on the hunt, be careful, because the genetic information of the virus changes rapidly over time. By finding people whose virus was more similar, scientists were able to create networks of linked infections to see how the virus has spread. Earlier, the work from the same group suggests 6% of men who claim to be heterosexual, they claim to be heterosexual at the time of diagnoses, had actually become infected through sex with men, not women. So for all those men that are online and they're making these videos about how they hate gays, and they probably, more than likely themselves, have participated in the same types of sexual activity. Be careful, young ladies. Be careful. The study found that the group of men identified tend to have fewer sex partners and prefer to partner with each other, behavior that may lead them underestimating their own risks. There's little evidence of them spreading the infection to openly gay men. Because, see, if you're hiding who you are, you don't want to be with somebody who's open about who they are, because then you have to now be open about who you are. Okay? So that's explains that. So there's little evidence, it says, of them spreading the infection to openly gay men or heterosexual women. Because, see, these people will call you out on who you are. So HIV attacks the body's immune system and left untreated makes it difficult to fight off infections. Early diagnoses and access to effective treatments allow a near normal and healthy life to prevent onward transmission. So men who have sex with men are the group most risk and most risks from the HIV infection, and account for half of those living with the virus in the UK, but they tend to be diagnosed and receive treatment at earlier stages of the disease. In contrast, heterosexual males remain the group least likely to visit sexual health clinics. Listen to this. Men who are not gay, they're the least likely to visit sexual health clinics and often diagnosed late when their immune system has already been damaged. So men who don't want to go to the doctor and think it's a woman's job to go to the doctor because women have babies, you're wrong. Men need to go to the doctor too. And all you heterosexual males who are sleeping from bed to bed to bed, you need to go to the doctor. The study published in The Lancet HIV was funded by the U.S. National Institutes of Health. So Professor Andrew Leigh Brown of the School of Biological Sciences, who led the research, said non-disclosed men who have sex with men are more likely to be infected by each other than openly gay men and less likely to be aware of their risk. The finding shows that the public health message should be targeted specifically at this neglected group. And I had mentioned a long way back, why isn't nobody talking about bisexual males? Because they still, they can be with a woman or a man. And so which one of those people are out there? How many? And they may be possibly one, if not, they're not the only, but one of the groups of guys who may be easiest to transfer to women because they can assume a normal lifestyle as pretending to not be gay. They can have a wife and a girlfriend and have children, have a family, and they can hide their identity of who they are. And so that shouldn't surprise you why some of these women are ending up with HIV, because they're with guys who are in this group, this neglected group. It also shows that a large-scale study of the health data can be carried out without risk to the individual privacy. And so that's pretty much the article. I just think people don't really realize the severity of this disease and this virus. And so I thought this was a pretty important article because it has been, it's been not that long that this article has been out. I had already looked at it, but I don't think people really pay much attention to that. They're readily to attack openly gay males who want to be with other openly gay males. Those two want to be together in a relationship, and they're honest about their sexual identity. They're not trying to go with women and pretend like they're not gay. They are open about who they are and they're honest and they know the ramifications of sleeping around with different people is a higher risk chance that they could wind up getting this virus or disease. But what about these men who pretend and assume this heterosexual identity for the fears that they have that we see all over social media and all in the news and on TV? And so they hide in the shadows and they have a wife and a girlfriend and they come from out of prison and they pretend like they're not engaging in extra activities with males, with other males. These are the people that are at just as great or maybe even greater a risk because they don't tell the truth and they're in denial, or there's fear, or maybe all of those reasons why they don't come and be honest, at least to their physician. You don't necessarily have to tell the world, but you owe it to your partner. You owe it to your spouses and your loved ones that could possibly be infected by you if you're not being honest. So I just thought this was an important factor in this whole thing because that might explain why the spread of this is so rampant and so prevalent, and why so many people will get it and not even realize where it's coming from because they may have a husband that has it. And not only that, we have learned that people are born with this virus and could have it because they were born with it, but also you have people who are bisexual, and you have people who won't come out, and there's some men who won't admit that they've had sex with other men, but they can assume the heterosexual identity. And women are at risk if they're in relationships with these kinds of men who don't tell the truth or they don't go to the doctor. And if you're a heterosexual man and you just are very promiscuous and you sleep around, you also are posing a great risk to not only yourself, but to the others that you're involved with in sexual activity because you don't go to the doctor to get checked out. You're promiscuous and you sleep around with multiple partners, and you don't know who those people have been with and what their sexual history is, and maybe you don't even care. But this should make you care. Lives are at risk, health of lives are at risk, loved ones, people that you confided in and told them that you were telling the truth when you in fact really weren't. For whatever your reasons, and maybe there are some valid reasons, some people are afraid. And, if you look at social media and look at some of the things that people have been doing and saying about people in the gay community, it does bring fear. Well, people, all of you people who have been spouting and saying all of these things that are very harsh towards people that are in the gay community, you might also be contributing to why there's such a high spread of HIV as well, because you're not being realistic to the fact that when you create this climate of fear, that people will hide who they are, and it doesn't make the diseases go away. It makes things worse. Ignorance causes lots of problems. It causes more ignorance and denial, and it causes the spread of more infection. Something to really think about. This is out of the medical press. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for listening.